Today's story was written by Reddit user ShneekeyTheLost. After reviewing the research materials, see appended files, it is the decision of the Council of Acquisitions that the potential risk in armed conflict with these new sapiens is too high to justify military acquisition of desired assets. It may well be that the research materials were flawed, however, it also may not. As such, it is the recommendation of the Council that we wait and observe how these humans react to someone else's provocation first. If nothing else, we are still in a position to jump in and acquire the systems desired, if they prove less formidable than the initial research suggested. And if they are in fact as dangerous as initial research suggests, we avoid significant material investment by letting someone else go first. Transcript from sealed Cabinet of Council's meeting, Crackneth Consortium. Ambassador Dulane read over the materials the Cabinet had provided him with care. It at least provided him with clear direction for the next Galactic Council session. Perhaps they were being too cautious in his opinion. But it is not his opinion which is relevant to the topic at hand. At least it wouldn't be long before they got their observations, if the Hanath's aggressive positioning was any indication. With this direction from his lawfully appointed superiors to spell out their intentions, it now fell to him to translate that intention into diplomatic discourse. First order of business was respond to the human diplomat's note, now that he knew how that response was going to be framed. He stalled on the response, waiting for just such direction to know how to appropriately handle the situation. There was a system which they wanted, of course. However, it happened to be in the area claimed by the Terran Federation. Normally it wouldn't have been particularly troublesome, however, it happened to be an inhabited system, which made things a good deal more difficult. The humans were firm on not wanting to sell, no matter how much was offered, as they'd already invested too much into the habitation and had too significant a population to easily move. Dulane didn't understand how they could inhabit that particular planet, given how close it was to the system primary and the gravity well it possessed, but it did pose a wrinkle. The several asteroid belts in the system had a very high percentage of heavier metals, which made them very desirable indeed. Plus, it was strategically located along the new border between the Crackneth, the Hanath, and the humans. It could serve as a significant refueling station and a springboard for any assaults going in either direction. Ultimately, it seemed, the Cabinet decided to let the Hanath try for it first. They were an extremely aggressive species, and currently in an expansionist phase, so the odds that they would attempt to militarily conquer the system, if it wasn't already in Crackneth possession, was quite high. Perhaps the Cabinet thought it would be easier to take a decimated system from a weakened Hanath force than to take it from the newcomers? Either way, the human ambassador had insisted on a clear response, and he was going to get one. After consultation with the Home Office and my political masters, it has been decided that we intend no hostility towards the Terran Federation at this time, and accept the rejection of our final offer without prejudice. We acknowledge your sovereignty over the system in dispute, and have no wish to challenge you for it. As a way to offer apologies for the lateness of this reply, I will be making a similar announcement to the Galactic Council stating as such, just so there are no misunderstandings. In fact, given that you are first on the docket for this meeting, if you hand the floor over, I'll go ahead and make that announcement and hand things back to you. Dulane contemplated this note. How far did he want to go? Should he warn the humans? They probably already knew that Hanath has been expansionist for the last generation or so, but a warning might be a gesture of goodwill. After a few moments, he decided that it couldn't hurt anything unless the private note got published. It might annoy the Hanath, but they were already sufficiently restless neighbours as it was. As a personal statement, one that is not endorsed from the Home Office, I feel I should warn you that the Hanath will likely take this move to be a concession for them, not you, and take it as a signal that they can attack without fear of reprisal from us. It has only been our looming in the background that has kept them from attacking already. I just want to convey that we have nothing to do with their likely response. We truly do not wish hostilities with your people at this time, but neither do we wish hostilities with the Hanath. The best you can expect of us is to remain a neutral but interested third party. Jelaine finished out the note with all the pleasantries and diplomatic niceties required and sent it off. He felt pity for the poor fellows. They did seem like a good bunch, but with their reliance on energy weapons instead of missile technology, the Hanath had every tactical advantage in this upcoming conflict. He only hoped that the Hanath would stop with this one system. Jim Prescott, human ambassador for the Terran Federation, formerly referred to as Sergeant Major Prescott of the Terran Federation Marine Corps, before age forced him into retirement and into his headache of a job, glanced over at the console as a polite sound indicated he'd received a message flagged urgent into his queue. When he saw whom it was from, he sat at the console and read the message from the reluctant ambassador Jelaine. A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth as he scanned through the note. I wonder if they got that xenoanthropologist research paper that we all but shoved under their nose. Well, either way, one less hostile to deal with. Good on them that they're willing to state it publicly and on the record. And while we certainly don't need their warning about the bugs, the fact that he was willing to risk warning us means I actually underestimated him. I guess I owe him a beer, or whatever passes for it with his race, next time I see him socially. From there he brought up another program, one which did not come pre-installed on his console. Humanity had finally figured out how to send brief messages across the vastness of space, albeit with many restrictions. It wasn't something they advertised, as no one else seemed to admit having a similar system, and so he typed into the marquee interface. Squibbles chilled out. We'll be stating publicly. Bugs still a problem. Could get worse. Recommend readiness level beta for mothball fleet. Official discourse to follow. The message went through several channels before reaching the courier ship in orbit. From there, it was decoded, then re-encoded, and squirted out into deep space. Jim shut the program down, then stared at the blank monitor a moment. He really hoped the folk on New Tatooine were preparing themselves. This whole situation had his nerves on edge. It felt like he was back in a transport, waiting for the order to board the drop pods. The Hanath had a very unlovely reputation when it came to treatment of conquered peoples. There were over 50 million people on the planet, plus another few million scattered about the orbitals and the belts. And if those dirty bugs did to them what they've done in the past to other conquered peoples, they were going to learn a new phrase, one as old as humankind. Fuck around and find out. Fleet Admiral Kacharam of the Hanath Imperial Navy relaxed into his control interface. Once the Kraknith backed down, he was given the order to proceed as planned. 50 naval vessels plus 5 transports accompanied his flagship into the contested system. The navigators have done their creche proud. There's virtually no scatter in our formation, despite how close we came to the gravity well. Form up the flagship and ready combat stations. We engage on my command. Its order echoed through the PA system. Each of the ships went to battle stations with practiced ease born of countless drills. Admiral, the target is sending a communications request. His comms officer carefully informed him with a crisp professionalism. Very well, on screen. The filthy vertebrate appeared on his screen, exposed flesh bag for all the universe to see. The Admiral carefully checked its disgust. One must be professional in all things. This is Planetary Governor Malcolm Tennant. You seem to have a very sizable fleet entering sovereign Terran Federation space. What is your business here? This is Fleet Admiral Kacharum. My business here is conquest. This system is now the sovereign property of the Hanath Imperium. As you can see, you have no hope of fending off my fleet. This is your one and only opportunity to abjectly surrender unconditionally. Save us the expense of our magazine capacity, and instead of slaughtering you out of hand, we'll merely enslave you. The Admiral felt it was being generous. However, given the value of the system, it was willing to be gracious in victory. You realise this is an act of war. Are you really sure you want to do that? The bipedal creature dared speak back in such a tone. I have my orders. Since you have just declined my offer of surrender, I will proceed according to my original plan. Make peace with whatever afterlife you believe in. You shall be entering it soon. You will regret this decision, Admiral. Your superiors will regret this decision. I hope that I will live long enough to see it, but even if I do not, rest assured, you will find out sooner or later. At a gesture from the Admiral, the comms officer cut the transmission. Message to the fleet. Engage Pattern Alpha, the Admiral announced. The order was quickly transmitted to the rest of the fleet. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had come at the most urgent request of the Terran Federation's ambassador. He insisted, demanded really, that a response be immediately forthcoming. As such, the room was less populated than it normally was, barely having enough seats filled to make quorum. This emergency session is now in order. First item on the docket, the Terran Federation. You have the floor. The computer was not technically an artificial intelligence, but it had been programmed to make such announcements in a plethora of languages. The Terran ambassador stood and took his podium that had been activated. We, the Terran Federation, demand accountability for the actions of the Hanath Imperium. Without bothering to declare war, they invaded our system, slaughtered millions of civilians, and continued firing even at civilian vessels who were merely trying to save as many lives as they could. We yield the floor now to the ambassador of the Hanath Imperium to hear its response. The calm and impartial computer intoned. The Terran Federation has yielded the floor to the Hanath Imperium for response. After a moment, the Hanath ambassador stood at its podium. The system in question is Hanath Imperium territory. The system was in open revolt, so a policing action was necessary. We consider this an internal matter. If you dispute this fact, you are welcome to try. I yield the floor to the Terran Federation for response. The insectoids didn't have facial expressions as a mammal might consider the concept, but it somehow still managed to convey smugness. The Hanath Imperium has yielded the floor back to the Terran Federation for response, the computer acknowledged. Oh, we'll do more than just try. We have a saying, one that dates all the way back to our pre-FTL days. Fuck around and find out. You have fucked around. Now you're about to find out. Do you at least wish to establish rules of engagement for the state of war that already exists between our people? Granted, you have already fired upon civilians, fired upon Red Cross medical personnel, attacked without first declaring war, and committed several other violations of our typical rules. But perhaps there are limits you wish to set. We yield the floor to the Hanath Imperium for response. Jim did his best to keep his voice civil, despite the rage he felt. There was a place and time for all things, and this wasn't it. The Terran Federation has yielded the floor back to the Hanath Imperium for response. The computer's bland and impartial tone was at odds with the smug gloating of the Hanath, or the smothered rage of the human. For that matter, there was a wave of unease that swept the members who had attended this special session. Rules? Limits? In war? Truly. Now I have witnessed everything. War is a state which explicitly rejects such concepts. If you cannot fend off your aggressors, you do not deserve to retain your freedom. We will not limit ourselves, and we do not care what you might try." The Hanath ambassador clicked its mandibles in a gesture of humour. "The Krakneth Consortium has indicated a request for an ex-party addition as an interested party to this conflict on their border," the computer calmly declared. The ambassador approached his podium. "We, the Krakneth Consortium, declare ourselves to be an interested but neutral third party to this conflict. However, we also do not trust the Hanath, due to their history of actions. Thus, any Hanath fleet found within Krakneth Consortium space, as defined by the Treaty of 4392.65, will be considered a belligerent and invading force and be dealt with appropriately, irrespective of any conflict going on outside of our territorial boundaries." The Krakneth ambassador's statement was not a particular surprise to most present. The not conflict between the Hanath and Krakneth had been going on for decades now. The podium now recognises the Terran Federation for response to the ex-party comment. The computer continued its function. "And what of any Terran fleets? We still have significant trade with your polity. Will that be halted for the duration of hostilities?" The Terran ambassador requested clarification. "I yield the floor to the Krakneth Consortium for response." The computer dutifully recorded and announced this transfer and permitted the response. "We see no threat from Terran vessels. We will honour any shipping contracts still outstanding, and we do not consider any trade agreements to be impacted by this unpleasantness." A motion to adjourn has been initiated by the Terran Federation. Please indicate your votes now. After a few minutes, the computer continues. Votes tallied. Motion sustained. This special session is now adjourned. Back in his office, Jim pulled up that little program again. The message he typed into the interface was even more brief this time. "The dog has been shot." After sending it off, he spent a few minutes calming himself. It was over an hour before he got a response. "Confirmed. The dog has been shot. Executing John Wick protocols. I'm thinking I'm back." Jim read the message with a grim sense of vindication. When he read the initial reports of the casualties, his aide had to physically restrain him from grabbing his sidearm and shooting the Hanath ambassador. Over 20 million confirmed dead, including 5 Red Cross ships that were deliberately targeted during search and rescue missions. The only reason it hadn't been more is New Tatooine was primarily a mining colony and had extensive subterranean infrastructure that the population retreated into, leaving the damn bugs in a stalemate. They could bomb the surface from orbit all day long, but they found out the hard way that trying to dig a human out of their hole was an exceptionally costly process, and that was only the beginning. The Hanath had conquered 32 separate species in their long and storied history. That number would not run to 33.